What's up, everybody? My name is Christopher. This is my dad, Leighton, and this is the Oosthuisen Show. And today we're talking about socialization in our Socialization series part 3, Socialization to the World. But first, a few words from our sponsors.
So our main sponsor, of course, is Partners Dog Training School. Also combined with Partners Snake Avoidance Training. And our snake avoidance is going strong. I think we're going to set record numbers this year.
Yeah.
We've had a bunch of good reports come back of the dogs that have alerted their people. So if you have a dog and you live up in the North Valley or in any area where there are snakes, that I guess could include parts around Phoenix and so forth, then you got to get your dog in for snake avoidance training so that we can help protect them.
Exactly, yeah. And if you aren't in the Arizona area, you still want to have access to our expertise and passion, check out HeyLudwig on Facebook Messenger. It's a little messenger bot that you can actually tell about your dog, and it uses those behavioral traits to create personalized curriculums to solve problems, teach tricks, and train obedience. And one of the core things in HeyLudwig is actually one of the puppy programs, and the puppy program focuses a lot on socialization, both to people, which we talked about. We talked about socialization to other dogs and other animals, both really, really core things, both in your puppy's life as well as a foundation for your dog's life. But the final part to that socialization kind of trifecta is the socialization to the world around them, which is really, really important if you want to make sure that you can take your dog out into their environment and introduce them to different scents and sensations and not have them freak out. And socialization is a huge part in making sure that doesn't happen. So today we're talking about socialization to the world, and that kind of has everything from different like flooring that your dog could be walking on. Some dogs, surprisingly enough, don't love the grass. Some dogs don't love the water, despite what many people might think. In fact, a lot of dogs actually can't swim right off the bat. They actually have to be taught to swim properly, and that's part of their socialization process as well. And there's a whole other aspects of the world around that we're going to kind of address in this episode, talking about how to socialize your dog to the world around them. So what would be I'd say the first part is really introducing them to your home.
Yeah, so when you, let's talk about when you bring a dog home for the first time. The first thing you want to do is remember that most dogs will take a little while to acclimate to a new home. So you want to make sure, I would keep all the doors closed, only expose them to a certain area, maybe use a couple of baby gates, put them in the family room or in a lounge area or a kitchen area. If it's a small dog, I would probably keep the dog in a much smaller area. Remember that space is not their friend. So if you have this big 5-acre yard, that's not the time to take them out. Exposing them to little things one at a time is probably a really good idea as well. And also make sure that when you do this, you can actually devote time to them. Don't bring a dog home, throw the dog in a crate, and then have to go off to work or something like that. Make sure that maybe over a weekend or something like that will be the best result in exposing them or acclimating them to your home environment.
And on the other side of the spectrum, don't overwhelm your dog with the whole 9 yards. If you have kids, don't let them rush on the dog.
Yeah.
I know it's a new puppy or it's a new pup, and it's really exciting to have that, but you definitely want to introduce that gradually and slowly, so that you don't overwhelm them, or the term that we use is flooding. So can you explain the term flooding to us?
So flooding is often used in a context of when you are trying to expose. And the best example I can give you is if you have somebody who's scared of a snake and you walk up to them and you have this, this innocent or this harmless snake, and you kind of just dump it in their lap. Well, that's most likely not going to result in a good reaction.
It's like throwing a person into the deep end and trying to let them swim.
Yeah. So flooding is not your friend, right? We want to do it gradually, step by step. And I know on TV there's certain trainers out there that say just kind of throw them in there and they'll suck it up and get used to it, but that's not the way we want to go. Yep. So do it one step at a time. And a really good point, and I want to go back to what Christopher said. If you have kids, small kids, they're going to be really excited about having a dog there. Make sure that they kind of take it one step at a time. Don't let them rush in. No hugging, no kissing, no really trying to just overwhelming the dog. Let them gradually ease into it. And a lot of times with small kids, I'll say keep a 3-foot rule for the first couple of days. Let them get used to the children being around. And then your dog will tell you whether they're ready for those kids to come up and say hi.
Yeah, we talked about introducing to children in our last episode, socialization to people. So definitely go and check that out if you want a more in-depth analysis on that. Now, there's a number of things that are in your house that, you have to be, basically puppy proofed, and so that your dog can't get into any trouble. Things like any type of food that they might have access to that you don't want them to have access to. Of course, you should be managing your dog's time around your home so that they aren't able to get into things that could possibly harm them, things like poisons, pesticides, chemicals, cleaning chemicals. If they have a very fascination over clothing or couches or whatever it may be, making sure that they don't have the ability to ingest that. Of course, that is definitely not what you want. Now, when you're first introducing your dog to maybe their backyard or maybe your home in general, and there might be some things like, again, even something as simple as carpet might not be what the dog's used to. Maybe they've come from the rescue or they've come from a shelter and they're used to tile or concrete floors, and now they have this new sensation on their feet. It's not unheard of for a dog to
have a negative reaction.
Have a negative reaction to that, or just a nervous reaction. So how would you make that into a positive experience?
Well, and then also just on that side as well, before I get into that, when you have a dog that has never been on carpet and you put them on carpet, I'm almost going to guarantee you that the first thing they're going to do is pee on the carpet. So don't expose them to that. Use a tiled floor area that's an easy area to keep clean, and at the same time it's also more comfortable for the dog. Now let's talk about what Christopher said. So I would use an area that is, I call it secure. So secure area would be something where I can manage what's going on there. So like I just said, a tile floor or a laundry or a bathroom or something like that. Just a small area. Let the dog get used to it. Now, if you have a large dog, then obviously a bathroom is not going to be big enough for that. If you bring a puppy into the house, I would literally make an X-pen. Now, an X-pen is kind of like a bunch of panels that have been hooked together. It makes a kind of like a hexagonal shape. It's almost like a circle, but a hexagonal circle. And you keep your dog inside there and you train them how to get acclimated to everything around them by basically exposing those noises to the puppy while they're in that X-pen. So both with new dogs coming in, puppies coming in, as well as with an older dog, a rescue, something like that, start off slow, start off in a controlled environment, start off on a controlled surface. Don't let them go on carpet. Don't let them go into an area where there's something of real value to you, because if they destroy that or damage that, that's on you, not on the dog. They have no idea. I think I covered that, right? Yep, that should be good.
Now, in terms of actually creating, so say something is a negative experience, maybe it's they came from a rescue environment and that type of sensation was a negative to them, or just in general it's a weird noise. Like for example, in our puppy and me class, we have a huge kind of I would say like not like a tub, but like a little kiddie pool, a kiddie pool filled with water bottles, empty water bottles. And obviously when a dog steps into that, it makes a weird crackling, and obviously it's a uneven surface and it moves from underneath them. So it's a really, really tough challenge to initially socialize a dog to that. So how would you create that into a positive experience?
Well, so if you're in a home environment, then, do things like collecting your old water bottles, which is what we use. You can use tennis balls, you can use what are those things called they put in pools, the little floaty, like the now I'm being brain dead. What's that thing that they put in pools you float on? It looks like a
like tubes?
Yeah, not a tube, but
foam noodles.
The noodles, yeah. Noodles are really good for puppies because you can kind of play with them. They can bite onto it, but don't let them eat the thing, obviously. So I wouldn't leave a noodle in there, but this is just to get your dog acclimated to that. And while I'm on that, I want to answer a question that Michael asked, do you guys specialize in socializing dogs in your kennel? Absolutely, and this is exactly what we would do. So if we had a dog that had come in for socialization, we might put that dog into a group situation, or we might put the dog into a one or two dog situation, depending on what they can handle, and then we'll acclimate them to the surface. We have concrete surface, we have grass surface outside, we have a dirt surface. We even have areas where we can actually take a dog and where there's some carpet as well, although we don't like carpet because it's normally got really strong odor in it and it's very difficult to keep clean. So I prefer something that's easily washable, but any of those types of things will make your dog feel more comfortable. And then of course, as we spoke about before, using your obedience training to set a foundation, and using that foundation to control your dog. And I got a great story to tell you. So this week, while we were snake avoidance training, Christopher was actually running it, and I was chatting with some people. Remember the people with a golden retriever that they had, and their dog was like really just out of control and struggling a little bit to pay attention. And I gradually started talking to them about training, and then I started doing more and more. And eventually, I was actually doing a lesson with them at their car, where the dog would just jump in the car, jump in the front, they had no control at all. And I was trying to emphasize that their dog needed foundation. And the way I explained it to them is that, they say, she, for instance, said that her dog doesn't come to her when she calls. Well, that's a common problem. And the most significant, or the biggest reason why a dog does not come to you is because your foundation is lacking. And so she says, well, he'll come when she's got food, but not all the time. Well, the problem is that the dog's coming for food, not coming for training. So therefore, you want to train your dog to work for food. And in addition to that, you want to train them with a foundation. So a foundation would be heel, sit down, stay, those types of things. It's kind of like teaching a child, okay, you need to sit down in your chair, you need to read your book. I have a 9-year-old daughter, Christopher's sister, Alessandra, and every evening she sits down and reads for 15, 20 minutes in the kitchen while Sarah's making dinner, or while I'm busy on my laptop or doing something, whatever the case is. And that teaches foundation. That it's not just the reading, it's the foundation of teaching that child or that dog what they need to do, how to focus, how to concentrate. And we use that same thing when we're doing socialization and exposure or acclimation to surroundings.
Cool. Talk also a little bit. I'm going to step out for just a second because I see we're having maybe some network issues. I want to make sure that we discuss, crowded areas, how to introduce your dog to maybe a public space, and things like malls, or even
Sure.
a post office, taking them into maybe even something. No, though we don't recommend it, but like a dog park, things like that.
Okay.
So talk a little bit about how you would introduce your dog to an area like that.
So if I was taking my dog out into public, a couple of things. First of all, I wouldn't take them out until they're pretty well socialized at home, and by that I don't mean initially with other people, but basically under control. I'd make sure that I have a fairly solid foundation on my dog. So your dog should be able to walk at your side, generally your left side. Dog should be able to sit on command. Your dog should be able to lay down on command. Your dog should be able to stay on command. So a good stay test is if you put your dog in a down stay, walk forward 2 or 3 steps, turn around, face the dog. Dog should hold that position, and should not hold the position because you're stressing them or threatening them or intimidating them. They should just hold the position because of the fact that they are conditioned into training to do that. Now, once you've got that foundation, now we want to go out into the public. Now we want to go out to an area where we can actually test our dog skills, but not overwhelm them at the same time. So overwhelming would be taking your dog to an airport. That's an incredibly difficult environment. When I used to train service dogs and I used to go train at the airport, probably 30 to 40% of the time we were struggling to maintain a reasonable amount of control at the same time while teaching the dogs. Now that's borderline. We generally want to always work on the upper side of 70 to 80% success rate. So what does that mean? Well, if I'm doing something with my dog and I'm succeeding, then I consider that to be a positive, right? A 1.